And that third rule of manhood being a sturdy oak. Because what we find very often is that the qualities of manly stoicism and robotic unemotional behavior are the things that make us least well prepared for being the kind of fathers we say we want to be.
Well, first of all, asshole, yes, we want to be fathers, and the courts are not allowing us to be full fathers, and you're not helping us any with this. You don't really care about us being fathers. Otherwise, you'd be helping the men's movement to have fathers' rights. Yet, you diminish fathers and their quest for equal rights.
Again, I'm not bringing you my Brooklyn Blue State model. I'm listening to what men say they want.
You are actually listening to what men say they want. Well, listen to what I'm saying. Listen to what men's rights groups are saying. Don't listen to feminist groups. They're not saying what men want, asshole.
Young men of college age all across the country are completely united on this issue. They want to be good fathers. They want to be way better fathers than their own fathers.
As if you care, Kimmel.
Really want to be involved with their children. So those of you, so this is really important. They want to balance work and family. They assume that they're going to be good fathers. So how do we think about this?
I hope in your new curriculum, Men and Masculinities, I hope you're going to tackle that and try to help men be the fullest fathers that they can, including in the eyes of the law.
How do we think about involved parenthood or involved fatherhood?
I'll give you 2 words, asshole. Shared parenting.
We think, I don't know, how many of you are parents? Let me see your hands. Okay, parents, what we are led to think of is quality time, right? You've heard this phrase, quality time? You know, quality time is like scheduling intimacy. Son, come home you're early from school on Friday, we'll kick that soccer ball around, and you can put your hand down now, thanks.
So let me see, now he's going to shame fathers for not being there, not giving quantity time. Well, tell that to feminist groups like NOW who oppose shared parenting, who don't want fathers to be an equal parent in the child's life. Talk to them. Tell that to your feminist friends back at college.
Or you can keep it up. You know, come home early, well, kick that soccer ball around, and your son or mine will say, sorry, Dad, I'm busy, but I'll text you. I'm a big believer, I think quality time, complete fraud. Those of you who are parents know exactly what I'm talking about. I'm a big believer in quantity time.
Why don't you tell that to the family court? Why don't you really help for fathers' rights and men and boys' rights and children's rights to have that quality and quantity time?
In doing the boring routine household tasks that nobody gets an award for, nobody gets to be, write a book about what a great dad they are, because they're too busy doing it. I believe in quantity time. Those moments, parents, you back me up on this, those moments when you have those awe moments with your kids, they happen, not to be too autobiographical.
Also, tell women to stop divorcing their husbands so that they don't have to be visited in their child's life.
The 43rd time you are watching Toy Story with your then 6-year-old, and he kind of leans into you and he says, oh, Daddy, this is so great. I love you so much.
Oh, my God, you're a father of a boy, Kimmel?
Aww, right? Aww. And what you know at that moment is, this would not have happened had I not watched Toy Story 42 other times, right? I've memorized that movie. So that idea of quantity time, of doing these things, that is what makes for those kinds of moments. That's what makes for those kinds of relationships.
So Kimmel's going to blame men for not being there for their children. Nothing to do with the courts or women divorcing them or not letting them see their children. Nothing to do with that. It's men's fault, right?
So if we want to have those kinds of relationships with our kids that we say we want to have, we have to put in the hours doing it.
We would like to if we had shared parenting and we didn't also have to spend 75% of our salary on child support or alimony.
And here's the part of it that's actually, now I'm going to be entirely data-driven here. What the data show is that this is actually in men's interest. And here's how I'll suggest that. First, let me tell you, there's a psychologist at the University of Washington named John Gottman. You may have heard of him. He's an amazing psychologist, and he's written several bestsellers, and one of them is about successful, thriving marriages, which to a sociologist is already a little strange, because when we study marriage, we only have one variable, intact or divorced. And what you know, of course, is there's a lot of intact couples where they hate each other. And there are also these intact couples where they're completely into each other. And you know, you see these people, they've been married for like 70 years, and they are still like holding hands when they walk in the park together, and not just for stability. And you see them in a restaurant, and they're looking lovingly in each other's eyes, and you say to yourself, as any human being would say, how do they do it? What makes a thriving marriage thrive? What makes a successful marriage succeed? And that's what Gottman answers. And what he finds is it's not simply strictly equality in the marriage, but equity, the perception of fairness.
Thanks, Mr. Obvious.
That both he and she, in his case he's dealing only with heterosexual marriages, he and she both feel that their arrangement is completely fair. That means you could have a very traditional relationship where he goes out and works and brings home money and she takes care of the kids, and if they both think that's fair, that marriage is going to succeed. It's the place where one or both people think it's unfair that causes that friction. So a successful marriage, now the easiest way that Gottman talks about this is trying to talk about marriage equality. He says the more equal the marriage, the likelier it is to thrive. Now, that's where he leaves it. But a sociologist named Scott Coltrane at UC Riverside, now the president of the University of Oregon, Coltrane actually figured out a way to measure the equality in a marriage. What he did was he came up with a whole bunch of variables that would describe different kinds of marriages in a whole bunch of different societies, from relatively pre-industrial to advanced industrial societies. So these variables have to be pretty big, right? So the first variable has to do with women, and the question is, can the woman own property in her own name after marriage? It's kind of a measure of women's economic autonomy. Does her identity get completely absorbed into his, or does she have an independent identity? Now, many of the women in this room are probably saying, well, that doesn't apply here. I mean, that's simply always been the case here. Let me tell you, I remember the day.
Here come the lies. You hear the ahas already from the feminist bullshit lies coming. Here we go. When women couldn't own anything and they couldn't have a credit card, and it was just yesterday, wasn't it? Here it comes. Lies.
I still, you know, those things. There are some moments in your childhood when you can still viscerally feel something physically that reminds you that I can still feel when I was 6.
And gee, why do we have to go back so many years? Mr. Kimmel. Well, maybe it's not so many years. Maybe it's 40 years. You're going to tell the story. But, you know, today, still, baby boys are getting their genitals mutilated every day. You don't seem to care about that. That's just boys. Men don't have any reproductive rights still today. Okay? But no, you want to go back 40 years and talk about some anecdotal bullshit.
Holding my mother's hand as we walked into the bank when my mother got to open a checking account in her own name without my father signing for it. It's in my lifetime.
So your mother got a checking account? So what the fuck's that mean? She was allowed to do it. There was no law against it. What are you talking about?
So that's one measure. Can the woman own property in her own name after marriage?
What century are we talking about here?
The other variable that Coltrane finds is how much housework and childcare does the husband do?
Well, you can see this is all cherry-picked. Of course, you know, I mean, if you want to get some real information, you go to Warren Farrell's book, because he really looks at both sides. Of course, Kimmel just cares about the woman's side. Is the woman fixing any cars, doing any yard work, shoveling snow? I don't know. Taking out the garbage, all those horrible, dirty jobs. Oh, well, that's right, and doing a dangerous job.
The more the housework and childcare the husband does, the more egalitarian the relationship.
And as I said before, Men are doing it all now. Okay, I don't know what world you're living in Kimmel, but men are doing the dishes, cooking, taking care of the children, doing diapers. They're doing it all. And they're still doing the traditional work that they'd always done.
And this is what the research suggests. This is what the research shows from Coltrane and Gottman both. Number one, when men share housework and childcare, so I'm going to propose now that men, we have two phrases that describe what we do around the house.
And to add further to that, there are many men, they're called MGTOW, who are doing household work and dishes and cooking, and they're doing it all on their own without women. So women are not happy about this, Kimmel. This is a trend that you are not foreseeing. Men are doing it on their own. It's called MGTOW, okay? And women are not very happy about it.
They both have two words. We help out, we pitch in. I'm going to suggest that we simplify that to one word, and that word is share. When men share housework and childcare.
When are women going to share children in divorce?
When we are dual career, dual carer couples. This is what the data show. One, when men share housework and childcare. So now I'm going to make the motivational argument to men. Now I'm going to say this is why you should support gender equality, right? We figured out why men don't, what the resistance is, etc. Now I'm going to talk about why we should. One, when men share housework and childcare, their children do better in school. Their children have lower rates of absenteeism, higher rates of achievement.
Yeah, because they're not divorced and the dad's still in the children's lives.
Their children are less likely to be diagnosed with ADHD. They're less likely to see a therapist. They're less likely to be put on prescription medication. So when men share housework and childcare, their kids are happier, healthier, and do better in school. Okay, maybe that's not enough of a motivation for men. When men share housework and childcare, their wives are happier. Duh. Not only that, their wives are healthier. When men share housework and childcare, their wives are less likely to see a therapist, less likely to be diagnosed with depression, less likely to be put on prescription medication, more likely to stay fit and go to gyms. So when men, and they report higher levels of marital satisfaction. When men share housework and childcare, their wives are happier and healthier.
Let me see if you could guess where he's going with this. He's listing different reasons, pluses, for men to share housework with their wives. He's listing different things, and pretty soon, you know what's coming up, the stereotype. He's going to use a sexist stereotype to bolster his argument. And it'll be all funny and stuff, huh? That's okay to make fun of men's stereotypes and straitjackets, but don't do that with women.
All right, maybe that's not enough of a motivation for men. When men share housework and childcare, the men are healthier. They smoke less, they drink less, they take recreational drugs less often. They are less likely to go to the emergency room, but more likely to go to doctors for routine screenings. They're less likely to see a therapist, less likely to be put on prescription medication, less likely to be diagnosed with depression. So when men share housework and childcare, the men are happier and healthier. All right, maybe that's not enough of a motivation for men. When men share housework and childcare, they have more sex.
See what I tell you, he was going to get to the sexist stereotype to bolster his argument.
Now, of these four amazingly interesting findings, which one do you think Men's Health magazine put on its cover? Now, what's interesting about this is the first time they did this was 2008, and their headline was, "Housework makes her horny." Not when she does it, of course. But just in January of 2015, they went back to this again with an image that is no longer safe for work, woman basically in her underwear, and talking about the pleasures of shore play. You've not heard this term? So now this is, so in all of these areas, men's lives will be let me just tell the men in this room, wait, I have to be careful about this. I don't want any of the men in the room to be thinking to themselves, I'm doing the dishes tonight.
Another low blow, making fun of men and boys again. You're terrible, Kimmel. These data were collected over a really long period of time. So men and boys always want sex, and I guess women really don't always, or something?
A really long period of time. And that leads me to the fourth area of change in women's lives. And the fourth rule of manhood: give them hell, go for it, take risks. And here I want to talk about sexuality. I want to talk about it on campuses specifically. I want to talk a little bit about how we think about sex on college campuses. I want to talk about two issues in particular. The first issue is HIV/AIDS, and the second issue is sexual assault. Now, we don't usually talk about these in the same breath, but I want to talk about what's common between them for a moment, through that lens of masculinity, or the rules of masculinity.
Again, he says that there's rules of masculinity. Those things come from sexist and prejudicial people. You're saying that, like, this is a rule book or a textbook or something that men use? No, we don't. We're trying to get away from it, but you're trying to keep it up as a straw man to keep denigrated men and boys.
Let me take HIV first. Okay, children of Georgia, what is your best way to reduce your risk of HIV transmission? Abstinence. Good. All right. That's good because I know what they didn't teach you in non-comprehensive sex education. So abstinence, and let me just say, I do not have anything against abstinence. You can decide for moral reasons, personal reasons, political reasons, psychological reasons, religious reasons, whatever reasons, not to have sex until you get married. That's fine. As a personal lifestyle choice, no problem. As a public policy issue, big problem. Why? Not for some blue state reason, but for simple demographics. It has to do with the onset of fertility, age of first intercourse, age of marriage. Or, more conversationally put, right? If you are a traditionally aged student here at Kennesaw, you will never again for the rest of your life be around so many people who are both sexually active and unmarried. This is why most people do most of their sexual experimentation during their college age years. I know somebody's in the room sitting there going, oh my God, I'm a junior, I better get busy. And I have nothing against abstinence. As I said, I do think, however, that we ought to agree on what abstinence means. Don't you? I mean, a study of high school abstinence pledgers found, you may find this sort of interesting, a study of high school abstinence pledgers found that 40%, that's 40%, 40% believed that oral sex did not violate their abstinence pledge. Yes. 10% believed that anal sex did not violate their abstinence pledge. And 10% believed that kissing with tongues does violate their abstinence pledge. Now, I think we can be reasonably sure that that's not the same 10%. Oh, you can do that, but don't kiss me. So I think we ought to have a conversation about what we're not able to talk about, at least. But let's talk about the other discourse that is far better public policy, precisely for the demographic reasons that I've suggested. Let's talk about the other discourse, which is safe sex, which says you can do some things, not do other things, do some things only with condoms. And I want to take the phrase safe sex for a moment. And I want to look at that through that lens of masculinity, that lens of being a real man.
Here it comes, stereotypes. He's putting up the straw man again.
Because to men, very often, that phrase safe sex is an oxymoron.
Holy shit, did he just say to men? To all men, Kimmel? Is that what you're saying? What an outrageous bullshit thing to say.
You know what an oxymoron is, right? You know, terms where the terms cancel each other out, like, you know, jumbo shrimp or military intelligence or business ethics or my personal favorite oxymoron, social science.
Bingo, that's the first right thing you said all evening.
I mean, what's sexy is hot, passionate, explosive, spontaneous. What's safe is warm, soft, cuddly. Come on, those must be the most detumescent words in the English language. So what men hear when they hear safe sex is stop having sex like that.
So, all men, when they hear safe sex, they don't think it's hot? Where's your data on this, Kimmel? Because you are so full of shit. You're just pulling this out of your ass, okay? There are women, just as many women don't like wearing condoms as men. And I speak from experience, okay? I had a girlfriend who said she was wearing a diaphragm, and I had never experienced that type of contraceptive, so I was a little bit leery. I wanted to protect myself and her from getting pregnant. I've always used condoms. She didn't really want to use them. She didn't like the feeling of them. I've had a number of girlfriends that said the same thing. These are women, asshole!
And this is why it has been difficult to engage straight men in safe-sex practices.
Oh, is that true? Straight men don't use safe sex? Don't have safe sex practices? Where's your data on that?
Precisely because of the way that we can't see, because homophobia sort of keeps us from seeing this, the way the gay male community has responded to the HIV crisis over the past 25 years.
Totally irrelevant.
Which has been exactly to say, how can we make safe sex sexy? How can we eroticize safety? How can we bring safety into our sexual decision making? Because that's exactly this safe sex videos, safe sex clubs, safe sex everything in the gay male community. And were it not for homophobia, I think straight men could sort of learn from that. But now I want to ask the heterosexual women in the room. Isn't that what straight women have been trying to do with straight men all these years?
Wow, so that's what all straight women have been saying to all straight men all these years. Wow, what a blanket statement of bullshit that is.
Because the difference between women and men's sexuality is no longer that men feel entitled to pleasure and women don't. Both women and men feel entitled to pleasure. But the difference between men and women's sexuality is that men see safety as the negation of sexiness.
Wow, Kimmel, all men see safety as not sexy? Where is that study? I really want to see that study, asshole.
And women see safety as its precondition.
Unless a woman wants to get pregnant by herself and without even letting the man know.
Unless a woman feels safe, unless a woman is certain that her bodily integrity will be respected, unless a woman is certain that her sexual voice, whether it is yes or no, will be heard and respected, she can't get to the part of her that says yes. This, it seems to me, is a no-brainer for us guys. If we want to have relationships with women who are as hot and as passionate and as sexy as we think we are, oh, stop. Just go with me on this one, okay? If we want that, the only way we're going to do that is to support women's efforts to end sexual assault.
Wow, where did that fucking come from? We're talking about safe sex, and now we're talking about sexual assault?
Because only when women feel safe can they give full voice to their own agency. Only when a woman feels safe enough to park in a remote parking lot, work late in the library, work late in a chemistry lab, go to a party, go out on a date, when she feels safe enough to do those things, then she can get to yes.
I don't know of anyone in the world who's totally safe wherever they go. Women can take precautions, and men can take precautions.
Then she can get to the part of her that says, here's what I want. Here's what I want to do with you. So I think this should be a no-brainer for men. And so I think sometimes we do sexual assault awareness on campuses in a way that misses men's voices.
Oh, here we go. It's not going to be good.
Very often, now I don't know how you do sexual assault awareness here at Kennesaw, but I'll tell you what I've learned at the hundreds of campuses that I've been at, most of the time, the sexual assault awareness, first of all, we do it at exactly the wrong time. We do it once, during first year orientation.
Here it comes. We only tell men not to rape just once in their college years. We have to keep telling the men, don't rape, don't rape, don't rape.
And then never again for the rest of your college career. Now, during first year orientation, if you are just coming to college, you were saying, and then you have to go to the workshop on alcohol, which the basic message is, don't do it. And then you go to the workshop on sex, and the basic message is STDs, unwanted pregnancy, sexual assault. Nobody ever talks about pleasure, fun, So of course, you're sitting there going, I came to college to get drunk and laid, and what's happening? I'm getting told I can't do that. So it's exactly wrong. It's exactly wrong. We have to start doing sexual assault awareness when people come and all through their college careers. Renew that. But the second thing is, how do we deal with this? We tell women, all right, you want to reduce your risk of sexual assault. Here's what you do. You dress a certain way, you act a certain way, you make sure that if you go to those parties, you always go with a friend, you never lose eye contact, you taste each other's drinks, all of these things. And it's true. You can reduce your individual risk of sexual assault if you do all these things. So women are being asked to constantly police themselves and other women.
It's called common sense. Men do it too. You don't do stupid things that risk puts you at risk.
To reduce their risk. And by the way, women don't not do this. Of course, women must continue to police themselves to make sure that they reduce their individual risk of sexual assault. I get that. But what does this assume about men for a moment? What this assumes about men is that unless women do all of these things, we men are wild, out of control animals, and we will be all over you.
No, asshole. Unless women and men do all those precautions, rapists and criminals will hurt you.
This strikes me as missing this sets a very, very low bar for men. Programming for sexual assault on most college campuses for men this is the entirety of it. Don't do it, and if you do, we will not back you up. End of sexual assault programming. Now back to the women. I think we're missing an opportunity here. I think that sets the bar very low for men. In fact, I think, in a funny way, that's a kind of form of male bashing.
As if you really care, Kimmel.
Because what it assumes is that men are basically, fundamentally wild, rapacious animals.
That's exactly what you teach.
And I think, to me, the four most depressing words in education are boys will be boys.
Isn't that what your whole literary career has been saying? Boys will be boys, and that's bad?
Because when do we say boys will be boys? We say it when guys do bad things. When we hear about, some terrible crisis, boys will be boys. Which basically means boys will be out of control animals and nothing we can do.
You're saying boys will be boys. Most sane people say criminals will be criminals.
Boys will be boys. How come we don't say, a man won the Nobel Peace Prize? Well, boys will be boys. We never say it when men do something good. It is absolutely resigned. My feeling is that we can do a lot better than that. And actually, I brought an example of this, if you give me a second. So, a guy I know at another college, since you're now, going D1, thought I would share this with you. This comes from Ohio State, along a D1 school. So, guys, you know what this is? What is this?
It's the bottom to the urinal.
Right. Thank you, Dan. I actually thought that the actual name of this thing was the urinal thing, right? Don't worry, this is a new one. The idea...
This is going to be bad. Get ready for this one.
This actually has a technical plumbing supply term. It's called a flash guard. In case you didn't wanted to know that. You'll now remember this. If you remember nothing from this talk, that's called a splash guard. What I want you to see is what you would see if you were using this as directive. It says, you hold the power to stop rape in your hand.
What an ugly, derogatory, horrible, sexist thing to say. You're saying that all men are rapists? Ooh, that's just disgusting.
Just give that a second to settle in. The idea here that's missing in sexual assault awareness, it seems to me, is the choices men make.
The choices men make? Asshole, the choices that criminals and rapists make. You are a fucking asshole.
The conversation that we need to be having with men about this. We could end sexual assault in this country tonight if men made different choices about what we do with our bodies.
Wow, that's absolutely outrageous. So, men out there, if you just knew that raping was bad, we could end rape. Kimmel, you're out of your fucking mind, man. Horrible human being. You know what I gotta say? You know, Kimmel, you're used to not having anyone question your hatred of men and boys for so many decades now. You know, the jig is up now. We're questioning you. You better be on your guard because your bullshit is not flying anymore.
This, it seems to me, is the missing piece in sexual assault awareness. Bringing men into this discussion, not simply as potential or actual perpetrators, but as men who are capable of preventing it.
I have no idea how men can prevent rape. I have no idea. I don't know. Tell us.
Capable of not doing it. Capable of standing up to other men who do the wrong thing. Because we know that being a man means doing the right thing. So all I've been arguing, my entire argument to you today has been that in every arena that we talk about as men, around sexuality, around fatherhood, around our family relationships, that the very things that women have identified that will make our lives, that will make their lives better, enable them to live the lives they say they want to live, are the very things we men need in order to live the lives we say we want to live.
Yeah, but feminists talk out of both sides of their ass. They say they want freedom from the drudgery of childcare, but they don't want to give up sole custody parenting.
That in fact there is no war between the sexes or battle of the sexes. The more gender equal we are, the better it is for women, and the better it is for children, and the better it is for men. So I'm going to close with one line. I did this book some years ago, a documentary history of men who had supported feminism in American history. I know what you're thinking, the world's shortest book. But it's actually the fattest, the thickest book I've ever done. It's an enormous documentary history because there have been men who supported feminism since the beginning of our country. And as I was doing this research, I found a document written by one guy in Greenwich Village, New York, in a magazine in 1915, exactly 100 years ago. And he wrote this article on the eve of one of the great suffrage demonstrations, when all of these women, thousands and thousands of women, marched down Fifth Avenue in support of women's suffrage in 1915. And he wrote an essay in 1915 called Feminism for Men. And this is the first line of his article, and I'll just leave it with you. He said, "Feminism will make it possible for the first time for men to be free."
Not your brand of feminism.
Thank you very much.